So we have to, thanks Ray, we have to embrace politics. It's not a bad thing. Politics has become a dirty business. We need to change politics back into part of society that serves us and gives us what we want. And to do that, we need to inject that virus or the seed of consciousness into the political beast. And that's part of the plan. And you'll see how simple it is. So, remember, we appoint our governments to serve us, not to tell us what to do. Most of us have forgotten that. The most important thing that some people have not recognized yet is that the government is not your friend. If you think that the government is going to do anything for you to help you or support you, you are living in la la land. They're controlled by the bankers, and they are there playing their role, doing exactly what they're told. And this is what we need to change. A government of the people, for the people, by the people. Right now it's a government of the bankers, for the bankers, by the bankers. On the 7th of May 2014, the Ubuntu Party participated in the South African elections, very proudly standing there in front of the blue screens of deception, where all the results keep coming in. And I had to go through that process to learn about that, to learn about what not to do in future. And it's exactly what we learned. We entered those elections with about 1 million followers or supporters. I know that because I have their names and cell phone numbers on my laptop in my bag. So I'm not just making it up. I know we had 1 million followers. In fact, I think my friend Scott Kundal might be here. Don't know if Scott has arrived yet. But he's the guy that started in South Africa the new Economics Rights Alliance. And Scott happens to be in London right now. And together with his 200,000 members of New Era and 800,000 people that were on my database, we had 1 million followers into the elections. By the time the elections were over and the final numbers came on that blue screen, the Ubuntu Party had just less than 5,500 votes. And that's at that moment that I realized that the entire national voting system is completely and utterly rigged. It's a predetermined outcome. And I had to go through that to actually be there and realize it. But I can tell you, one of the funny things that happened is that during this process, you can see every party has their own table, and all the politicians are huddled around their table, and we had all the Ubuntu books on the Ubuntu Party table. And one by one, the politicians from all the other parties would come past our table, and they'd like sort of walk past and go, come back and have another look, and eventually they build up enough courage and say, are you selling those? And I'd say, no, they're free, have one, because I decided to hand them out for free at that event. And they say, really, for free? So I take the book and they come back, will you sign it for me? That was really funny, including the ANC. By the end of the elections, I took a walk around that whole huge hall. Every single party had one of the Ubuntu books on their table, sometimes more than one. And that's how we very subtly injected the seed of consciousness into the political beast. I could not have planned it better, I must tell you. So every political party in South Africa that was in the elections now knows about the Ubuntu Party and what our strategy and philosophy is. But the other thing that happened is one of the parties just in front of us, a very elegant looking African lady, turned around one stage and she turned back at me and said, hey, Ubuntu. And I said, yeah. She said, I was an observer at the international voting station, and did you know that the Ubuntu Party got the most number of votes from all the parties abroad? And I said, what? Come again? She said, yeah, everyone is so surprised that Ubuntu got more votes than the ANC. Out of 28,000 votes, the Ubuntu Party got the largest number of votes. So the total came back in, 28,000 votes, and we waited and waited for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days before they finally released the breakdown of what votes each party got. By the time they released the votes, the breakdown, the Ubuntu Party got 28 votes. 28 votes. And you can understand the shock and horror, what they probably went through for 3 days at the IEC. No way in a million years could they have released the Ubuntu party getting more votes than the ANC from around the world. It's just not going to happen. Because you can imagine the shock and horror in the media, what the media would have done with that information. They can't do that. So they spent 3 days figuring out how the hell they're going to deal with this problem. And eventually, they proportionally allocated the number of votes that they knew the Ubuntu party was going to end up with. Out of 28,000, we ended up with 28. And that's how they do things. A year later, exactly a year later, the Ubuntu party participated in the UK elections. You may not be aware of it at this stage. And we stood in 2 constituencies. Paul Toussaint, as I mentioned, who cannot be with us today because of his disease, his back. Paul Toussaint registered the party, and then he was one of the guys that stood in Stoke-on-Trent, and Mark Slay stood in Sutton Coldfield. I don't know, is Mark here? No, I don't think he said he couldn't be here. And so already we made history, that the same philosophy, the same plan of action, the same manifesto and the points that we made in South Africa a year before was then used here in the UK. So we've already crossed borders and made history with a unity consciousness philosophy. And now we're going to take it to the next level. And you can see it says for the creation of a people's bank. In South Africa a year before that, I went onto television in my 60-second TV ad telling people we're going to close down the Reserve Bank and replace it with a People's Bank. And you can imagine the horror when people see that. They think that they're like, no one's ever said this. It's like, and then we said the same in the UK. So we're going to close down the Bank of England and replace it with a People's Bank. Some people are confused about that, so let me just make it very clear. That was our plan of action then, when we were still going for the elections on a national level. But then we learned that even if we have 20 elected members of parliament, means absolutely nothing. We'll have very little effect on the outcome of the elections and what happens to the country and the people. What became very important is that we need to go down to the small towns and the small villages. That's where we're going to be far more effective. But part of our promise on the national level is, as I said, is to shut down the central bank and replace it with a people's bank that issues money for the people, by the people, just tax-free, interest-free, no levies, no nothing, no interest. And that can happen in a blink of an eye, overnight. Tomorrow morning all the banks open, except suddenly we print our own money. We no longer use pieces of paper in a private company and have to pay interest back to this private company called the Bank of England. We now print our own money and we don't have to charge ourselves any interest. That paper is just as good for us as it is for the Bank of England. And I hope you understand this. It is not the final solution. A people's bank is not the final outcome or the final solution, but it is the first and most important step to take to release the pressure cooker and relieve the people of the pressure and the misery that we all experience. It allows the people to move from the overpopulated cities and the slums back into the towns, back into the villages, back into the country where they come from, and be able to participate in anything they choose to do, because whatever loan they ask for from a people's bank will always be granted. As long as you're involved in developing communities, community projects and public works, all money is always presented and provided for. And it never ever has to be paid back. But I don't want to get stuck in that debate, because some people really still struggle with that. Because that's the trap of money, as some researchers call the Babylonian magic money slavery system. Because it has some sort of a black magic encoded in it that makes us go loopy. And it's like, really? So, what this experience taught me in the mainstream politics is that that's not going to solve the problems. Our plan of action has shifted completely to local municipalities. Only one elected mayor. One elected mayor is infinitely more powerful and influential on his or her town than 20 elected members of parliament. And that has now become our strategy all around the world. injecting a seed of consciousness into the political beast at the smallest, most insignificant municipality or local community where they least expect it. And there's very little they can do about it, because the way that the electoral structures work on local levels are very different the way they work in national elections. And we have taken on a new slogan for these elections in South Africa. It's one small town that starts the breakdown of the capitalist movement and changes the world. It starts with one small town. No more opposition, resistance, marches, violence, none of that. We just channel that energy into a whole new direction for the benefit of our communities and use that energy for ourselves. So the plan is very simple. We have to win at least one local municipality. So like I said, the South African elections, I'm not sure if they announced it officially yet, but it was leaked to me 2 days ago that it's going to be either the 2nd or the 3rd of August this year. So when I get back, I've got about 3.5 months to campaign and get as much support. We have identified 12 small municipalities in South Africa, which I'm targeting. The 12 smallest municipalities. The smallest one is 7,500 people. The same ones on that list have about 12,000, 13,000 people. There are, however, others that have contacted me and are begging me to put them on the list. I have 185 candidates that put up their hand, said, I want to represent Ubuntu in my municipality. It's a huge task for one guy. At this stage, I have very little support, and I have about 11,000 pounds to do all this with. So, just keep that in mind. We're going to need some money to do this. And if any of you are conscious millionaires or no conscious millionaires, get a hold of me or get onto our website and please make some donations, because I'm going to need all the money I can get to pull this thing off. And you know how this works. Bullshit baffles brains, right? The more posters we can put up in the town, the more billboards we can put up, the more full-page ads I can take in the newspapers, the more ads on the local radio station I can take, will win people over. I know that some people really don't like that, but this is how it works. And we have to use the tools that they use against us to win hearts and minds of the people. So that's what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to be traveling to all these different municipalities, having workshops with our candidates and showing them and sharing what I'm sharing with you, but really more of the plan of action, what to tell the people and how to explain to them what we're going to do. And our main message in this campaign is free electricity for all. And I know that in some countries electricity is not a problem. In South Africa, majority of the people spend up to 1/3 of their income on paying electricity. It's a crime against the people. Where at one stage we had the cheapest electricity in the world, we had one of the largest electricity providers in the world, Eskom, which belonged to the people. It now belongs to private owners and private corporations. It's a private corporation. But this is how they hide stuff. They tell you, oh, Eskom is a wholly owned subsidiary of the government of the Republic of South Africa. Yeah, the government of the Republic of South Africa is a registered corporation, just like I showed you earlier. And this is how they hide things, and they confuse people. In case you missed that, South Africa, and I'm using that country because it applies to every country, South Africa is very different from the Republic of South Africa. South Africa is the land that we live on, that the people live on, the land that belongs to the people. And we all think that that's our country. It is our country, but it's been stolen by a group of people that have registered the company called the Republic of South Africa, which is a piece of paper, an idea, and that corporation has imposed its laws upon this land called South Africa. And this is how they baffle us with all this stuff. So we have a huge problem with electricity. And our main campaign promise is free electricity for all. And we make it very clear how we're going to create that electricity from our rivers, wind and sun. Because then it's very clear to people. Just because people are poor doesn't mean they're stupid. And this is where the government keeps making a mistake. So when people see this, they can figure out in their minds, okay, I get it. Of course, we can get it from the wind, or the sun shines all the time. But we all know, you know in this room, that there are other alternative energy devices, other sources of scientists and inventors that can create things that we can't imagine or the average person can't imagine. So we will invite those people in to help us. But for now, for the elections, it's from our rivers, wind and sun. What do we do with this electricity? We use this tool that is actually used to divide us and enslave us. We use that as a platform of unification, to unite the people. Because everyone that works in the community projects that we'll be setting up will get free electricity. The first thing we do, we implement a number of community projects. In our little town, and I'm going to use my little town of Waterval Boven, which means upper waterfall or waterfall above, Waterval Boven, I'm going to use that as an example to take you through some processes of thinking. So, remember that every municipality gets money from government to run the town. So that's how we do this. Our town gets about 3 million rand a month, converted to pounds, just to make it easy. 3 million pounds a month. We see nothing from that. Our roads get broken, nothing works, no sporting facilities, everything is just run down and it gets worse every month because the politicians just put the money in their pockets and build houses and buy farms and keep enslaving our people more and more. So that 3 million pounds becomes the channel with which we then instill or put in our free electricity device. We pay for it, we put it into the river, do whatever we need to. Once it's put in, it belongs to us, the people. Not to the government, it belongs to the people. And with that, we start providing everyone the free electricity. But they have to contribute 3 hours a week into one of these community projects. 3 hours a week to get free electricity. The same money that we get from government, we start to implement all these different community projects. We've identified 30 projects. We've also identified that each project will need about £50,000 per month or £50,000 to get going, with appointing a master craftsman or a master artisan that's specialized in that, whether it's a baker or shoemaker or a cheesemaker or a fish breeder or a whatever, so that you've got a master at the top of that community project together with a project manager and a handful of people that are already used to working in that environment, that are already trained in that environment. That becomes your core group of people in that community project. Each project, once again, belongs to the people. It belongs to the whole community, not to the municipality or the government. So collectively, we are starting to create a powerful number of projects that belong to the community based on this platform of free electricity. Everyone that wants free electricity must contribute 3 hours a week, not a day, 3 hours a week towards this community project. And we're going to pick up a lot more on that. The next thing we do, we appoint a council of elders. This is really important. We can no longer allow the same kind of control structure that we have to dictate to our community or our town. So we go out and we reach out to the elders, the most trusted, the wisest among our community, to be appointed onto the council so they could become the decision-making body to guide and steer our town into prosperity, to prevent others to try and run away and abuse the system, especially in our moment of transition. And then everyone, as I said, that gets free electricity contributes 3 hours per week. What does this achieve? This achieves something that we have not been able to do for a long, long time. In a town of 5,000 people, where I come from, 3 hours a week, we've just turned our town into a very powerful labor force that no corporation or company or municipality can compete with. No municipality of that size can afford to pay 15,000 hours of labor a week. And suddenly things start to change very, very quickly. You know how many community projects you need to fill 15,000 hours of labor a week? So just start thinking about that. And you realize that a lot of things have to happen at the same time. We have to start all these projects. We have to put people in place to distribute the electricity. And suddenly this explosion of excitement happens in our town, in our community. What are the benefits? Everything we do, each one of these projects, whether it's milk or bread or fish or mushrooms or wood or whatever it is that we do, is free to the people that work for 3 hours a week. Not just the project you work in, but everything else. So what we're setting up is not a bartering and a trade system here, not a one-to-one exchange. We're creating a one-to-many exchange. As long as I contribute my 3 hours a week towards one of those community projects, I have access to everything that we are creating together. That's the big difference here. But it goes a lot further. We don't just create what we need, we create a lot more. What's important about this as well, that even now, if we had to start this tomorrow, each one of you and each one of us can participate in this, because we all have 3 hours a week to contribute. It's not a train smash. So you don't have to give up your job in the bank or in the government or wherever you work today. You can still hold on to your job and start participating in your communities and the community projects while we're laying the foundation for future prosperity and abundance, because that's what we're doing. Creating communities of abundance. And I need to just come back to that quickly, because I forgot to put that slide in here. We are not creating a self-sustaining community. There's a big difference between self-sustained communities and what we're doing here, communities of abundance. You know probably like Damanhur and it's the one in Scotland? Findhorn, and all these places all over the world, these communities that have become quite famous, and the Israeli kibbutzes and so forth, these self-sustained communities. What effect or impact have those communities had on the world? Zero. Self-sustained communities sound wonderful, but they have too many laws and restrictions to keep people out. And if you don't have this or that or enough money or this, you can't join. There's always restrictions. We're creating open communities that energy flows through. Anyone can join our community at any stage, and anyone can leave at any stage, because that's how they're structured. Self-sustained communities is just an extended ego. Instead of me, mine, now it's us, ours. Don't climb over the walls unless you're invited. That's not a solution. And that's why they've had no effect on anything. We are doing something very, very different. So, by creating this platform of unification on the electricity, creating the community projects that start to bring huge amounts of money into our community, and allowing people to join right from the very beginning without giving their job, we've got a beautiful springboard to creating this community of abundance. And then it just gets better and better. First thing we do, we don't just grow food over there. Hey, okay, we got a food growing, let's grow some food over there, brew. Oh, no, can't. That's like hippie style stuff. No, this is going to be very precision planned. So we figure out exactly what we need. We got 5,000 people. How many potatoes do we need? How many nail clippers do we need? Whatever it is we're going to set up, and we create not just what we need, but we create at least 3 times as much as what we need. That is the contributionism model that has evolved out of this philosophy. But you'll see that we actually end up creating a lot more than 3 times as we go through this process. Unimaginably more than 3 times. But the plan is just 3 times. Remember, we're doing it for free. Our labor is for free. So we can do so much that a company or corporation or a municipality could never ever match or do. Now, just imagine what is going to come in. In the beginning, everything that we create, make, build, grow is there not just for us, but also not to give away to other communities. Many people make this mistake. They say, yeah, we've got so much, we can start giving it away. Wrong. That's where we start planting the seed and the virus of consciousness into the beast. We're not going to give it away. We're going to sell whatever we cannot consume, but we're going to sell it at a fraction of the price than any supermarket or anyone else can sell it for, to all our neighboring towns, and as far as we can distribute our goods and services. What have we just done? We have collapsed the capitalist model. It's astounding how simple it is. But it's difficult to do it unless you are in a position of authority, position of political authority. Because we can decide to do this as a community project, to go and find a piece of land and start doing all this. The moment we become a threat to the establishment, they'll send the men with guns to shut us down. This is why the political plan is so critical and plays such an important role. We cannot achieve this without involving politics. Polity, that issue about the people, for the people, by the people. So now we've got this amazing model, and I'll give you an example. Our town gets 3 million rand a month from government. One of the community projects we're going to launch there is a fish farm. We've got a delinquent fish farm that can be fixed very quickly. That fish farm can breed 1 million fish a month. At 10 rand per fish, we're making 10 million rand a month. That's more than 3 times as much as we're getting from government a month. From one community project. We've earmarked 30 community projects. Can you see how much money we can bring into our town just from working together and setting up more and more projects? So let's go back. We have 1/3 that comes into our town from the projects, goes towards upgrading the community projects. 1/3 goes towards creating more projects all the time. So we create feeders to feed the components and the materials for the existing projects, because we're going to constantly need that. And the last third goes to distribute to the people in our town. So as long as you contribute your 3 hours a week, you'll be getting money, and lots of money, from the money that we make from selling our goods and services. Now I did a quick calculation, and if we just get some of these 30 projects going at a fraction of what I've already mentioned, I forgot what numbers I put in, but I put in reasonable numbers. I should actually write it down and put it up so you can see it. But you can do these numbers for yourselves. In a town of 5,000 people, 30 community projects, I worked out that every month, every member of our community can get 10,000 rand a month. That would be equivalent to 10,000 pounds a month here. It's twice as much as the average salary per month is in South Africa. I'm talking the lifestyle is, what costs a pound here costs a rand in South Africa, if you do that kind of calculation. And right now, the average salary in South Africa is probably about 5,000 rand a month. I'll be distributing 10,000 rand a month for everyone for working for 3 hours a week. So now you can start putting this into context. So, excuse me, for 3 hours a week, I'm getting 10 grand a month. It's going into a bank account. I'm getting everything for free, electricity for free, food for free. Everything I'm getting free, and I'm putting 10 grand a month in my bank account. Are you still going to hold on to your job in the mine or the stinking factory that you have to go work 8 hours a day? The answer is no. So, what I'm planting in your minds now, without fighting or resisting or opposing anything, creating a new alternative reality, we automatically start closing down those aspects of our society that are destroying our lives and importing cheap labor from China and supporting slave labor in Chinese factories and so forth, creating our own and creating abundance beyond our belief. But it gets better, even much better from now on. Excuse me. Okay, so where are we? We got our town, we got an elected mayor, we got our electricity device, we got all these projects that are just mushrooming and bringing in money for our community. We are not only distributing money, we are selling all these things. We're collapsing the capitalist model around our neighboring towns. They're going to have to start doing what we're doing because their businesses are going to be shutting down. Because their people are all going to be coming to us to buy their stuff. So they're going to have to do what we're doing, literally immediately. How long, if you're the mayor of a neighboring town, and I've just won the election here, and I start implementing this, what are you going to do as the mayor of the neighboring town?
Where do I say that?
Yeah, you know that your clock is starting to tick. If you don't do what we're doing, you're going to be kicked out of office very quickly. The next important thing we do, we invite all the inventors, the healers, the scientists, the teachers, the computer geeks to our town. And we say, come, inventors of free energy devices. What do you need to create a free energy device? We'll give you whatever lab you need. How long do you think it's going to take for these inventors to come and give us their free energy devices? Days? Weeks? Exactly. The healers, the guys that can cure all disease. come into our town, can work in our hospitals. What do you need to cure all disease? And you realize how quickly those people will come. How long do you think it'll take for a computer geek or a bunch of computer geeks to build a supercomputer if you give them everything they need?
I've got one in my pocket.
Exactly. I asked this question last year in Seattle, and there were a bunch of computer builders and computer geeks from Silicon Valley, and they laughed. They said, it's not going to take any time because a supercomputer has already been created. But it's not been released because just like the free energy devices are not released, the cure for all disease is not released, the supercomputers are not released because it's not good for business. So what are we going to do in our town, in Little Watervalboven? Or some little equivalent town in the English countryside? We're going to build supercomputers and we're going to sell them. How many supercomputers do you think we're going to sell from our little town? I don't know, 1,000 a week? 100,000 a month? I don't know. How many ever we can decide to manufacture? Are we going to sell them all every month? Yes. We're going to sell each and every one, as many as we decide to make. So just start imagining about how much money our town will make. And in the beginning, people, it is all about the money. Don't delude yourself. We have to make so much money for our little town that we can do anything we want because we are still stuck. We're a little island surrounded by the white sharks of the capitalist empire. We need to have so much of the tools with which they destroy us so they cannot destroy us because we have their tools to defend ourselves with. This is why we cannot create an alternative currency or some weird electronic currency, because then they can shut it down. But they can't shut down their own currency system, and that's what we use to feed ourselves. So my suggestion to people is I get a lot of emails from people every week saying, I've got 1,000 acres in Texas, I've got a huge farm in this and there, I want to start an Ubuntu community, what must I do? My answer to them is, don't do it. Whatever you do, please don't do it. You're going to spend millions of pounds building homes, putting down waterways or whatever, putting roads and infrastructure in. Why would you want to do that? Spend all that time and energy and money on creating a whole new system within a capitalist system. And from what I've learned from intentional communities, because that's what that is, it's an intentional self-sustained communities, within a few years, it all blows up. People start arguing and fighting, and it all blows up, and most of these intentional communities end up being auctioned off. I've seen it a few times now. So my suggestion to these people is, don't do it. Go and find an existing community. There are millions of existing towns and villages with all the infrastructure you need. All the homes and the warehouses and the roads and the pipes and the electrical wires and the plumbing is all there. All you got to do is convince the people to think a slightly different way. And things can change very, very quickly. So how long will it take a bunch of engineers to convert our cars to drive on electric motors once we invite them into our community? Very, very quickly. So we'll have electric cars while everyone everywhere is still putting petrol in their cars. How long will it take the same engineers and inventors to turn our cars into levitation vehicles? I don't know, a few months. That technology exists, especially once we start using the cones. The same technology that bumblebees and dragonflies use. And then the interesting thing happens. So once we have levitating vehicles, what are we going to do with all the roads? And I've had an interesting idea and a thought. I can imagine this like giant combine harvester with these spread wings that just drives down the road. And as it drives, it sends out a frequency that deconstructs and dematerializes the concrete, the tar and the metal and everything in the road, turns it into compost, and what comes out the back is mixed with the soil and it plants seeds as it moves. And we start converting all our highways, millions of miles of highways, into these long tracts of forest. Just imagine that. Let's make it a reality. And if you think I'm dreaming, think again. That technology exists. We just don't have access to it. But all it takes is one little town and a mayor of that town to make this a reality. And this is why we need to follow the political path. We can get there so much quicker. And we can get there in South Africa in the next 3.5 months. That's how quickly this can happen, people. So I'm going to need all your support here from the UK and from whatever other country you come from over the next few months in South Africa. Your moral, your spiritual, your mental, and for those that can afford, your financial support as well, because that's where it comes down to. Can you imagine what will happen to our hospital once we start curing cancer? And we can do that very quickly. Once we've treated the first multimillionaire, what do you think is going to happen? Every multimillionaire with cancer is going to protect our little hospital. So what happens in a weird roundabout way is that we'll start getting protection from the strangest places for our little town that we can't imagine. What if an army general's wife is dying of cancer and we cure her of cancer in our hospital? What's that army general going to do if they want to send the army to destroy our town? He's going to say, forget it, I'm not going to destroy that town. And this is what starts to happen. Because we're doing the right thing, we're changing the minds of people, we're changing the way they think and the way they act by being connected and by sharing this amazing utopian life and by sharing the knowledge and the technology and the progress with everyone. So you've got 168 hours in a week. You work 3 hours a week, means you have 165 hours a week left to yourself. What are you going to do with all that time? It's a big problem, isn't it? We can't even imagine that. You've got everything you need. You're working for 3 hours a week. You've got to do something that feeds you. You're going to paint or breed horses or go and help the butterflies or start beehives all over the place or do whatever it is you're passionate about. And that is the most amazing thing that happens. Suddenly there's this creative explosion in our town in areas that we cannot imagine while we're trapped in a capitalist society. And it's in this moment that you start realizing that your 3 hours a week is just not good enough. Because each of us will be drawn towards something that we love to do. Because each of us, if you're a crazy young scientist that wants to work in the materials lab, where we're creating new materials, mixing graphene with hemp and creating something that's 1,000 times stronger than steel and 100 times lighter, you'll be knocking on the door of the lab saying, 3 hours a week, no, I want to work here, I want to sleep here, I want to eat, breathe and smell this stuff because that's what I want to do. 3 hours a week is not enough. Do you think that people that work with horses and love horses are going to be happy with 3 hours a week? You're insane. They're going to want to sleep in the bloody stables with the horses. Because now they can, because that's what their contribution is to the community. And you suddenly realize that 3 hours a week, forget it. 3,000 times multiplication of what we do. Those that want to grow seeds are going to be growing so many seeds, we won't know what to bloody do with them. We'll be sending them off to Mars to colonize Mars with our seeds, just in case the shit hits the fan on this planet. You know? And this is where we have to start liberating our minds to realize that everything is possible just because we've removed money from the system and we've set ourselves free. Everything that we do ultimately becomes a community project. Other than your 3 hours a week that you go and work in, everything else you do ultimately will sooner or later or very quickly become part of the community projects. Because if I'm a painter, and I paint my beautiful paintings on my canvas that I get from the guys that make it from hemp. I get the frames from the wood factory that make it from wood that I get for free from our own wood production, whatever, mill. I use real wooden brushes that I can't afford as an artist in the capitalist world, with real horsehair that I can't afford in the capitalist world. And I get my paints from our chemistry lab that makes an infinite number of colors that are non-toxic, biodegradable, and environmentally friendly. I get it all for free, and with this I paint my most beautiful, unbelievable works of art, and everybody comes to me and says, Michael, please can you make a painting of my wife, because she's so beautiful. And I make paintings for everybody, and I'm not the only painter, there's 100 others. Can you imagine the overflow of art and culture that we get? Musicians, musical labs, our music studios. We need a music studio for all our musicians. Well, what kind of music studio do you think we're going to put together? The best possible music studio we can put together. Yeah. so that we can record the most spectacular pieces of music and nothing's going to stop us. So that what's that going to do to all the musicians around the world? All the top musos in the world are going to come to Watervalboven to record their bloody albums. You know? And it's just, just set your imagination free, and you start seeing that we become this explosion of creativity and consciousness and a magnet for everyone and anyone in the world that wants to create. Whether it's a scientist or an artist or a teacher or a healer, it doesn't matter. Everything becomes a community project sooner or later, because you're contributing towards the well-being of your community. How do we attract farmers and businesses and factories? This is just spectacular. You just realize how eloquent and how embracing the simple system is. It never ever excludes anyone. Always embraces, invites everyone in, and provides a shelter and a place of community for everyone, no matter who you are. I'll use an example. We have a wooden factory that makes wooden doors and windows in Watervalboven. I become the mayor. We start doing all this amazing stuff, and I go to the factory owner and I say to him, turn your factory into a community project. And guess what he's going to say? Why should I do that? What's in it for me? And I'm going to tell him, well, this is what's in it for you. No rent, free electricity, free labor, which is right now the biggest part of your monthly bill, free wood for your frames, free glue from our lab that you're now paying a fortune for, and our glue is a lot better and a lot stronger and biodegradable and all that stuff. Plus I'm going to pay you £50,000 a month to make your project a community project, and on top of that you can retain 1/3 of the profits and 2/3 go to the community. What are you going to say? The standard answer that I get, when can we start? You know, it's a no-brainer. It really is a no-brainer. But let's assume for now that in the beginning, not everyone's going to get it, right? Because that's just the way we wired. Not everyone's going to want to join in, and people are going to sit on the fence. So let's first go back to how long will you sit on the fence and hold your job down in some factory or in the bank and have to pay for everything and pay for electricity? Because you say, I'm not going to work 3 hours a week, that's for the peasants. That's slave labor, 3 hours a week, I'm not going to do that, forget it. And then all your friends are doing it and they're getting free electricity and their food and everything you do, and you still have to pay for it, and you're paying for electricity. How long will you sit on that fence? Right? Not very long. So that's a fence sitter issue. Doesn't last very long. And then the second issue is with the companies that don't want to join. Well, if the wooden factory owner is so arrogant that he says, no, I'm not going to join you, I'm not interested, well, we'll be forced to then create our own community project of the same sort. What's the consequence of the arrogant window factory owner? Unfortunately, he's going to go out of business. He's going to shut down. But this is where you see the beauty of the system. The fact that he has to shut down is not going to devastate his family. They're not going to end up on the street. His laborers are not going to go beg for food or look for new jobs. They immediately get embraced and held in the same community because they're part of that community. All they have to do is work there 3 hours a week. And he might end up working back in that wooden factory if he's as good as everybody thinks, and he can actually become a master artisan to teach all the others how to make doors and windows. This is how embracing this system is. It's quite incredible. It is completely and utterly forgiving on all levels. And then brings me to this thing called minority rule principle, because I write about it in the book, and so many people get really confused about this, and it just shows us how poisoned we become with the domination, the model of dominating our societies. There are infinitely more minorities than there are majorities in every community. From the people that look after the butterflies, to the ones that worry about the cleanliness of the water, to the purity of the air, to those that care about the horses and the stray animals. All these number of minority groups that in a capitalist model never get enough money, never get enough tools and technology and support from government or municipality to perform the functions they support to help them do what they want to do for the community. Well, in our town, Every minority group will get all the best tools and support and technology and laboratories that they need to perform their task to the best of their ability. Plus, we'll have so many more groups that do things that we can't imagine today because there's never enough money today for us to do these things. And that's where we can call this society of ours a minority-driven society, driven by an infinite number of minorities, where one majority group can never impose themselves on the rest of the people. And that brings us to almost the end of this utopian journey, when we realize that all the stuff that we're creating and we're doing and manufacturing, we can't consume all of it, we can't always sell all of it, so we're going to have to do something with the things that we create. We're not always going to want to deconstruct it and reprocess it, so we're going to put it somewhere, and I call it the Ubuntu warehouse. So we have this huge factory kind of place, or like a giant Walmart, but it belongs to us, and we put everything in there. So we got this huge warehouse with all our things and our food and technology and everything, and any one of us can go in there with your little Ubuntu card, which we allocate to ourselves, and we apportion to ourselves as much as we think is necessary per annum or per month or whatever we think. And that really gives us the ability to go in there and take what we need when we need it. Everyone else outside can come in there, but they have to buy it for a fraction of the cost they'd buy it anywhere else. So we continue destroying the capitalist model while we invite people to join us or create their own models. But what have we done with these two simple things? Creating the Ubuntu warehouse and issued ourselves this Ubuntu card. We've done three really important things. First one, we've created an alternative supply of goods, services, products, everything else. An alternative supply that's outside of the current supply, which uses slave labor and Chinese factories and so forth. Everything in that warehouse belongs to us. We made it. It belongs to us. It's free. We don't owe anyone any money on it. No bank can come in there and repossess it and reclaim it. A new supply chain. Secondly, by creating that little Ubuntu card, we've created a new currency system that doesn't work with money. There's no money in there. No bank can shut your card or shut your account down and keep your money, prevent you from getting anything. And thirdly, with that little card, we've allowed people to travel around the world and live wherever they want to and choose to live wherever they want to. That is the most amazing thing. So I now decide I want to move from my Ubuntu town. Give me a small town of a small name in England. Name of a small town in England.
Penzance.
What?
Penzance.
Penzance. I live in Penzance, which has become the first Ubuntu community in the UK. And I want to go visit my friend in Cape Town, who lives on an Ubuntu community 2 hours outside of Cape Town, in a town called Bredasdorp, which is incidentally one of the municipalities we're going to be contesting. So I take all those hundreds of thousands of pounds that are in my account, because I've got nothing to use them on, but I've got this account, all this money, and I take some of that money and I go to the airport and I buy myself a first class ticket to Cape Town, because, what else am I using the money on? And I find some nice people at the airport. They look really needy, so I buy them each a first class ticket as well, because I don't know what else to do with my money. And they're very happy, and they want to know how I can afford all this money. And I show them a video how every week we burn money in our community because we don't need all the money. I forgot to mention that, our town will be making so much money that once a week you have this money burning ceremony, where you just like take, $100 million, stash it up and say, look, we don't need money, see, we just need each other. So I buy myself a ticket and I fly down to Cape Town. I get off at the airport and I go to the most expensive car rental company. I buy myself the most ridiculously Actually, I don't even need to rent a car, I just go buy a car. Just go buy a car cash. Yeah, why rent a car when you can just buy one? What else am I going to use the bloody money on, right? So, and in pounds, it's going to cost you like £20 to buy a car in South Africa. Our rand has been destroyed so badly by the Rothschilds, it's ridiculous. That's so they can steal our minerals for nothing, you see. And for £10 you can buy so much gold. So I go and get myself a car and I drive down to the Ubuntu village in Bredasdorp, I arrive in Bredasdorp, I go to the Ubuntu office, I give them my card, they swipe my card, they say, oh, hello, Michael, welcome to our Ubuntu community. What do you do? And I go, well, I'm a material scientist. And they go, oh, fantastic, because we don't have any material scientists in our community yet. So excellent. So tomorrow we'll have a meeting with the rest of the elders, and we'll start putting together a laboratory for you. Would you like that? I say, yeah, it's bloody excellent. And they say, well, what else do you like to do? I say, well, I like to work with horses. I said, that's fantastic, because we got a great horse breeding plan here, because this is one of the biggest horse breeding areas, communities. Plus, we also use horses to cure children, to heal children of all kinds of diseases, mental diseases and so forth. And they're going to love the fact that you want to work with the horses. So I'm welcomed into the community. And they say, by the way, on Thursday afternoon, please report to the bakery at 3 o'clock and give your 3 hours a week, because we got to bake about 10,000 croissants for our neighboring town that are having a special function, so we're helping them out with a lot of croissants. Go help the bakery, they need your help this week. So that's my 3 hours a week, and the rest of the time I'm going to put up my own materials lab that they're going to provide me everything with, because I'm going to show them how to make new materials that they haven't done yet. And then they say, well, where do you like to stay? Do you want to stay up on the mountain or by the beach? And I go, well, I'm tired of the beach in England. I'm going to prefer to stay up in the mountain. And they say, great, here's the address for the chalets. We got about 20 chalets up in the mountain there. Go pick one and welcome to our town. That's how simple it is. And that's how simple it always should be. You can choose wherever you want to live, because you're part of that community and you contribute towards that community. You should never ever be stuck in a place because of a job, because you can't move. So this is how we free billions of people up from pursuing their passion and go wherever they want to, integrate in their communities and start to create abundance. What's going to happen to mines, industry, manufacturing? Are we going to need coal mines? Of course not. We got a completely different supply of electricity and energy. No more desecration of our planet. And no more pollution. And you can see what this the knock-on effect of this will be. Millions of ecological or environmental scientists will spring into action to start cleaning up the planet, start solving the pollution, start solving the radiation problems. And you know that the radiation fallout can be solved in a week or in weeks, but we're not using that because that's not good for years of pharmaceutical profits, right? And the disease that come out of those radiation spillage disaster areas. Everything changes, people. The moment we take money out of the system, where we live, how we live, who we live with, what we eat, what houses we live in, the materials the houses are made of, the technology we use, how we get around, everything changes instantly. So you've got to start figuring that into your image of this future life, this future utopian society. Nothing stays the same. Everything changes for the better, for the benefit of everyone in the community. And that's why earlier I said I call it a self-correcting system, because it always corrects itself for the greatest outcome of everyone in the community. Our needs for materials change completely. We're no longer going to be using what we use today. In the Ubuntu world, everything is recyclable, renewable, and reusable, and everything we use pretty much is custom made for us, for each and every one of us. From your furniture, to your clothes, to your shoes, to your hairstyle, to your toothbrush, who knows, I don't know. It's custom made because that's how we do things. No more factories that mass produce crap because we need to sell it. No more shops that have got tons of clothes. Can you think about all the millions of shops that sell clothes around the world? If you had to take all those clothes together, everyone in the world will have a cupboard full of clothes and we won't know what to do with it. And yet those clothes are made that they don't even fit us. So now you're not going to have that problem because the tailor, the tailor in your community is going to have your size and make stuff for you as and when you need it, exactly for your size and shape. We create our own paradise. We are the makers of our own reality, and we start creating it right here today, right now. Don't ever think remember that the field of quantum physics is more than 100 years old, and already then they taught us that we are the makers of our own reality. Have we been teaching this to our children at school? Of course not. It's far too dangerous. And all this amazing utopian paradise that we've discussed here could just be a few months away. It does not have to take a long time, people. Stop thinking that. I know many people say, oh, this is fantastic, utopian. This is never going to happen in our lifetime. No, it is going to happen in our lifetime. We're going to project it to make it happen in our lifetime. It could happen with the next elections in South Africa, and it all starts with one little town. That's what this takes. So on that note, what can you do? Join the Ubuntu movement online. Go onto ubuntuplanet.org. Join the Global Connector. It's a platform that's taken us a long time. Thanks to Matt over there. Matt is the architect of it. Thank you, Matt, for your brilliant contribution. And join the online Global Connector. Start sharing. Create a circle for your town, for your county, wherever you are. Start sharing your community projects and sharing the philosophy. Read as much as you can about this. Go out there and tell everyone. Start meetup groups in your area. Share these ideas. Buy an Ubuntu book. If you can, support us financially in South Africa, only if you can afford to. And next time in the UK, hopefully very soon, vote Ubuntu. And thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. So just remember those that want to get involved in the Ubuntu movement in the UK, please stay behind. I'm not sure if we can stay here for much longer. Don't know what the time is.
We've got about half an hour.
We've got about half an hour. Those of you that have had enough, go home and start infecting your seeds of consciousness wherever you go. Just drop them as you walk. Thank you.